We have breaking news. Former Congressman says he is withdrawing from consideration for Attorney General amid allegations of sexual misconduct. He just posted this on X saying, "I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it's clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction."
Talk about a humiliating defeat. Alleged sex trafficker Matt Gaetz was announced as Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General, and then just 8 days later, he withdrew his name from consideration. I mean, his nomination didn't even last a full Scaramucci. Turns out when your resume screams sex trafficker and pedophile, the interview process gets real short, real quick. But despite the damaging leaks coming out about Gaetz having sex with minors, Trump was defiant.
Mr. President, are you reconsidering the nomination of Matt Gaetz?
No.
Maybe Trump wanted Gaetz because he was more than just his loyal yes man. He was another sexual creep like him. Birds of a feather and all that.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy.
However, Gaetz did not have the votes despite Trump personally calling senators.
Trump has spent an enormous amount of time calling some of these Republican senators directly, trying to lobby for Matt Gaetz. He had said that Gaetz was his most important pick, Attorney General being the most important pick to Donald Trump in his administration, and one that he wanted to push through.
Since Matt Gaetz' nomination, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump have spent a lot of their political capital to get Republicans to vote for Matt Gaetz, and it failed.
Now, there had been conversations among Trump allies about how much political capital Donald Trump was willing to use on Matt Gaetz and how that would affect other nominees, particularly those that are more controversial. We were told by a number of Trump's allies that there was concern, there was more in that ethics report that had not yet come out, and that was going to hurt Matt Gaetz, hurt the process, and that it was going to be impossible to get him confirmed. Among the things that we were told there was concern over was that there was a belief there were new witnesses that were interviewed by the committee, and that information was going to come out than was previously known.
It's been an uphill battle for a lot of reasons, a major one being that Gaetz has torched so many bridges with colleagues, he's practically a full-time arsonist.
Even a president-elect may not be able to just deliver a win here for a nominee who has completely torched goodwill with, in the math, the very Senate Republicans that he has to count up and get in order to be confirmed into this job.
We have Murkowski and Collins rejecting the duties that they have as senators, and if they do that, their voters should reject them. Our leadership, frankly, is in shambles. You've got McConnell wavering.
Speaking of fools, Republican Senator and neoconservative Markwayne Mullin, Mitch McConnell's real legacy is that he was missing in action when we needed him most, and spent a lot of his time in the Senate putting special interests above American interests. My advice going forward is that the Republican leadership doesn't need to pick one of the Johns. John Thune, John Cornyn, John Barrasso. I think that there are going to be better options than the Johns. Senator Tillis trying to get another blank check for a corrupt country. It's disappointing. There's a certain hubris to all of it.
Let's just say, when people hate your guts, they're not exactly lining up to give you a glowing recommendation. But the actual reason that Matt Gaetz dropped out was because there was a new allegation coming out. This one involving a threesome with a 17-year-old girl.
Earlier today, we finalized our reporting that the Ethics Committee had been informed of a second sexual encounter between Gaetz and the woman who is just 17 years old at the time this alleged encounter took place. This is testimony that the alleged underage victim had given to the House Ethics Committee. We also learned that she had said the same thing consistently in a civil deposition. At 11:30 today, we reached out to the then Attorney General nominee's team, explaining our reporting, giving them the opportunity to weigh in. They asked us to give them an hour. We did. We said we would go at 12:30, and about a moment before I was supposed to come on air and share the new reporting from myself and our colleague Sarah Ferris, is we didn't get a statement from Gaetz. Instead, we got the statement saying that he was withdrawing as the Attorney General pick. And I just want to reiterate that our new reporting is that the woman who is at the center of these allegations that he had sex with a minor has told the Ethics Committee that when she was just 17, she had not one, but two sexual encounters with Gaetz at a party in Florida, and that second encounter involved an adult woman.
This was a major loss for Trump and his team, especially when it's been revealed that Trump's election win was not a mandate and was much smaller than he thought.
Awkward.
And let's remember who was probably working in the background to hurt Matt Gaetz, his frenemy Kevin McCarthy.
And I'll give you the truth why I'm not Speaker. It's because one person, a member of Congress, wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old. An ethics complaint that started before I ever became Speaker, and that's illegal, and I'm not going to get in the middle.
These are serious allegations, and if Matt Gaetz, Donald Trump, or Mike Johnson really believe there's nothing to hide, then they would have released the ethics report. Instead, they had Matt Gaetz resign to kill the report, Mike Johnson stepped in to say it shouldn't be released, and then the Republican committee members voted to withhold it. But now, the details are leaking, and it is much worse than we originally thought.
So they reference the underage girl's testimony, including that she says she had sex with Gaetz on an air hockey table. The friend of the underage woman who brought her to the party testified that she too had sex with Gaetz at the same gathering.
What is wrong with this guy?
ABC News has obtained records of Venmo payments Gaetz allegedly made to two women who provided the records to the committee. The documents show between 2017 and 2019, then Congressman Gaetz allegedly made 27 payments to the women, totaling more than $10,000. Under the reason for the payment, Gaetz allegedly wrote notes including gift and just because. The two women testified some of the payments were for sex.
They essentially put the Venmo payments on the screen and asked about them, and my clients repeatedly testified, what was this payment for? Well, that was for sex.
Matt Gaetz is disgusting, and the Republican Party is morally corrupt.
And just to be clear, your clients knew he had paid also your clients for sex? He was paying for sex?
The testimony before the House was yes, that Representative Gaetz paid my client, both of my clients, for sexual favors throughout the summer of 2017 all the way to the beginning of 2019.
And how did he pay them?
Those were primarily through Venmo and PayPal payments. There was one payment through Representative Gaetz' adopted son through his PayPal.
Nestor.
That's
the
right.
The adopted son.
Yes, using the PayPal account of his son, Nestor, who isn't actually his adopted son, but some young boy who lives with him.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
But before we dive into more of this Matt Gaetz scandal, I want to quickly thank today's sponsor, Smalls. Cat food has been the same forever. It's time for cat food to move into the 21st century. That's why you've got to try Smalls. It's time to make kibble a thing of the past. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality. I recently ordered Smalls as a gift for my friends' cats, and they can't get enough of the stuff. We actually did a taste test and put two bowls side by side, Smalls and their kibble, and they immediately went to Smalls. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. And a few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the US. I feel better knowing that my friend is feeding his cats real food and not burned kibble. And now when I cat sit, I can finally open up a packet of cat food and not get nauseous. I actually recognize the ingredients in a packet of Smalls food. After making the switch to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident that your cat will love their product, you can try it risk-free. That means they'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Now is the time to switch to Smalls. Head to smalls.com/Gabe and use promo code Gabe at checkout for 50% off your first order, plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use my code Gabe for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code Gabe for 50% off your first order, plus free shipping. Then we found out that Gaetz flew girls out with him to Fox News where they performed sexual favors to him during their trip.
You mentioned last night a trip to New York in January of 2019 that you say Gaetz took your clients on. They say that they were there. He paid them to travel with him. He paid them to have sex with them on that trip. So first, though, apparently, they say he took them to Fox News and that they were basically offset like this, but they're offset, waiting for him to do his interview. And let me just play a clip from that particular interview. So Gaetz is going to New York. He does this interview, in part says this.
I know the president likes to call her Pocahontas, but now that she's making her way from the eastern seaboard into the center of the country, maybe Sacagawea would be more appropriate. But instead of bringing Lewis and Clark, she's bringing the most liberal policies of the Democratic Party.
Okay, so that was their show Outnumbered. And then after that, he leaves the interview with your clients. And then what happens?
Yeah, so they went to the show Pretty Woman, and I believe that my clients went to an EDM show later on that night.
And an EDM show, what's that?
An electronic dance music.
Okay.
They had a show that they wanted to see that night. And the House was, the reason why it came up actually, the House was asking my clients if they ever felt pressured by Representative Gaetz. And they indicated, at least one of my clients testified to the House that there was a time that they felt that they needed to please Representative Gaetz before going out and going to the show.
Okay, I understand what you're saying in that. I'm not going to ask you to get more graphic than that.
The signs that Gaetz was involved in sex trafficking were all there.
Congressman Matt Gaetz, then in his first year as a congressman, did briefly earn himself some national headlines that you might remember. It was weird at the time. Why is there one member of Congress from either party, from either chamber, one alone, who voted no, who voted against increasing law enforcement funding to combat child sex trafficking? This thing passed unanimously, except for Matt Gaetz. He voted no.
These stories that we're hearing about Gaetz having sex with minors shouldn't be surprising, especially when Gaetz would brag about it and show photos and videos to his colleagues on the House floor.
We had all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had walked away of the girls that he had slept with. He'd brag about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night.
And I just want to point something out. These Republican lawmakers were totally fine with all of that until now. If it isn't clear, Matt Gaetz is a morally and ethically corrupt person, which is certainly a pattern when it comes to Trump's inner circle, especially his nominees.
See, these choices are, on the one hand, cartoonishly outrageous, but when that dust settles, it's not really just about the scandals and the personal lives of these nominees, and there are many. It's about what their positions and their lack of experience could do to our health system, our national security, and the rights we have in this country. Did RFK Jr. produce some of these strangest headlines in the history of presidential campaigns? He sure did. Does RFK Jr. have a strange, is one way of describing it, penchant for carrying dead animals in his car? He sure does. But RFK Jr. is also one of the most dangerous purveyors of inaccurate information about vaccines that our country has ever seen. The HHS secretary oversees the CDC, the NIH, and the FDA. So basically, in human terms, our vaccines, our medicine, and our food. His nomination and confirmation would mean that the guy who founded one of the nation's most prominent anti-vaccine groups would be in charge of the agency that makes recommendations on vaccines. The guy who said he would stop research into infectious diseases would be in charge of the agency that studies infectious diseases. So that's what's coming on that front. And then there's Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's pick for director of national intelligence. Is Tulsi Gabbard prone to say things like Putin, Zelensky, and Biden should have ended the Ukraine war by using, quote, the aloha spirit? She is, and that's pretty odd. But Tulsi Gabbard, as director of national intelligence, would mean an apologist for Vladimir Putin will oversee 18 intelligence organizations, including the CIA and the NSA. Means our allies would look at our intelligence services potentially and see someone at the top who has shown a greater fondness for dictators and our adversaries than our friends. And finally, there's Pete Hegseth, a veteran and a cable news host who has gone viral for axe-throwing mishaps and saying things like he can't remember washing his hands once over the last decade, which that is gross. But more recently, the headlines have revolved around a sexual assault allegation against him. And while he was never charged, his lawyer says he agreed to pay his accuser for a non-disclosure agreement. And yes, all of that, well, mainly the last piece, should be disqualifying on its own. But also consider the much bigger picture here again. His confirmation would mean someone who champions service members accused of war crimes would oversee our military. Someone who has said the military should not have women in combat roles will be in charge of lots of women in lots of combat roles. Secretary of Defense leads the largest organization in our government with millions of employees, including active service members, and a $900 billion budget. Their job is not at all to decide whether the military is woke or not, whatever that means. But that's what a Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, will see it as.
This was the Senate's first test against Trump, and they won. Now, there are still some Republican resistors who haven't gone full-blown MAGA yet, though I'm not sure how long it can last since Trump's team is threatening GOP senators with Elon Musk-funded primaries if they vote against cabinet picks.
The Trump team has been playing hardball, and they've been giving an ominous warning to any Senate Republicans who might oppose his nominees. One Trump advisor telling our John Carl that the message is, quote, if you are on the wrong side of the vote, you're buying yourself a primary. That is all. And there's a guy named Elon Musk who is going to finance it. The Trump advisor added the president gets to decide his cabinet, no one else.
This is what we're dealing with, a dictator who is working his way through our democracy like a parasite, destroying everything in its path until nothing is left. But for the moment, Trump is losing certain battles.
He decisively lost his first fight, and it was with his own party. And in doing so, he proved that political gravity still exists. Donald Trump may have won more votes in swing states. He did. Eke out a plurality nationally. He did. That did not suddenly make him a brilliant tactician. And it did not convert the band of miscreants around him into popular and confirmable figures. Choosing Matt Gaetz for this job was a dumb move. It was an unforced error. He is manifestly unqualified and, as we learned, unconfirmable.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to follow me at I Am Gabe Sanchez. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the audio version of What Was That, perfect for when you're on the go or just relaxing. Catch every episode wherever you listen to podcasts. So until next episode, I'm Gabe Sanchez, and this has been What Was That?